Greetings of the day. I am Anusmita Roy and today's video is on the topic Understanding Lease as per Transfer of Property Act 1882. But before indulging into this particular topic, we need to first understand what exactly lease is. So lease in layman's term could be defined as the transfer of an interest in the property for a stipulated period of time without transferring the ownership of that property. In a lease, right of possession is transferred instead of the right of ownership. Transferor here is called the lessor and the transferee, that is the one enjoying the property for a period, is called lessee. Lease is governed by the Transfer of Property Act 1882 and it is given from section 105 to 117. As per section 105, lease is stated as the transfer of immovable property for a particular time period for a consideration for which the transferee has accepted the terms surrounding the agreement. And there are also certain essential criteria of a lease, and those would be: number one, parties must be competent. The parties in the lease agreement should be competent to enter into a contract. Lessor should be entitled to a property and have absolute right over that property. Second would be right of possession. Ownership rights are not transferred in lease, only the possession of the property is transferred. Third is rent. There is some consideration for a lease that can be taken in form of a rent or a premium. Fourth is acceptance. Lessee, who is to get the interest in the property after lease, has to accept the lease agreements along with the time period and terms and conditions imposed on the transfer. And the fifth condition is time period. Lease always has a particular time period which is to be specified in the lease agreement. It can be relaxed at the option of the lessor. Section 106 provides us the duration of the lease in absence of a lease agreement. It states that in case there is an absence of an agreement or a contract, lease can be ended by both the parties to the lease by issuing a notice to quit. Section 107 states about how the lease is made, and it covers three aspects. First, that there is a lease of immovable property for a term of 1 year or more. This can be only made by a registered deed. Second, all the leases of immovable property can be either made by a registered deed or an oral agreement or settlement along with the transfer of possession of that property. Third is that the lease of a multiple properties that require multiple deeds, it will be made by both the parties of the lease. Section 111 of Transfer of Property Act 1882 states that the determination of the lease, which lays down the ways in which lease can be terminated. And our first point would be lapse of time, when the prescribed time of the lease expires and the lease is terminated. Second is because of a specified event, when there is a condition on time of lease depending upon a happening of an event. Third is interest. Lessor's interest to lease the property may cease, hence resulting in the termination of the lease. Same owner. When the interest of both lessor and lessee are transferred or vested in the same person. Fifth is the express surrender. This happens when the lease ceases to have an interest in the property and comes into a mutual agreement with the lessor. Sixth is the implied surrender, when the lessee enters into a contract with another for the lease of property. This is an implied surrender of the existing lease. And seventh is forfeiture. Section 112 states that if the lessor, after initiating the process of termination of the lease on the grounds of forfeiture, accepts any rent from the lessee, it will be understood that the lease will still exist and the termination and notice to quit has been waived. Section 113 provides two ways in which the notice can be waived, and those would be definitely expressly or implied. And section 116 states about the effect of holding overlays down, that if that there has been a waiver of notice to quit, It will not be called a new lease. Instead, it will be called as lease on sufferance or tolerance without objecting against it. The term, excuse me for a moment, uh, the term holding over stands for retained possession of a property which has been leased. After this, the lease is renewable at any normal lease and in the same way prescribed under section 106. So, in the conclusion, we could say that lease is a very important aspect of real life. Every person has witnessed a lease deal involving renting of a house, car, etc. Therefore, it is important for the general public to know that the rights of every individual in a lease and to know about the provisions that govern the lease. The lease is mentioned from section 105 to section 1017, out of which sections which may have a general public, law students and legal fraternity have been discussed in this particular video to give clarification and a basic idea about the lease. Thank you for your time. That's it.